Now, the incoming interim Zimbabwean President, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is preparing for his swearing-in tomorrow after returning to a hero's welcome in Harare yesterday. The 75-year-old former vice president fled to South Africa after being expelled from Zanu-PF by party president Robert Mugabe before Mugabe's resignation on Tuesday actually paved the way for his triumphant return. Let us now cross live to our reporter in Zimbabwe, Chriselda Lewis. Chriselda, a very, very good morning to you. Mnangagwa yesterday arriving to a hero's welcome. Talk to us about last night's scene before we look into what is expected to happen tomorrow.
Well, that's right, Palisa, an absolute hive of activity that hundreds and even thousands of Zimbabweans were looking forward to. The arousing welcome that he received at the Zanu-PF headquarters, where many had lined up waiting there for hours, waiting for him to return from South Africa, of course, following his axing by the now resigned President Robert Mugabe. And when he arrived, certainly it was a welcoming fit for who they say is the man who will change the fortunes of this country. And we kind of have a glimpse now, Palisa, of exactly the direction perhaps that Emmerson Mnangagwa will be moving in once he is sworn in tomorrow. You'd recall in the address that he made yesterday, he touched very much on resuscitating the economy of this country and mentioned job creation 3 times. So that really gives us an idea that the issues that the ordinary people of Zimbabwe have been raising, he will certainly take those into account and primarily focus on some of those as some of the key issues that he will start with. But certainly a kind of welcome that we were expecting following the resignation of President Robert Mugabe, and the anticipation that we saw upon news that he was going to arrive in the country yesterday. We really saw people from all walks of life, women, men and children, walking through the streets of Harare to the Zanu-PF headquarters. And certainly when he did arrive, it was a spectacle that everybody was waiting for, and that really gave us an indication that this is the man that this country's people want to lead. But before all that pomp and ceremony that we're expecting tomorrow, Pali says that there's a process before that must take place. First of all, the Speaker of Parliament must receive a letter from the ruling party, which is of course Zanu-PF, indicating its preferred nominee, which we now know is Emmerson Mnangagwa. And then once that is done, the Chief Secretary then puts in preparations in place for the swearing-in ceremony of the incoming president. So that process, once that is complete, the process itself will unfold then tomorrow. And certainly the kind of scenes that we saw in Zimbabwe, where you had thousands, tens of thousands gathering on the streets, those who cannot make it to the venue will certainly be gathering at nearby television sets and will watch this historic moment unfold.
Let's go back a little bit to his speech yesterday. Of course, as you said, that the resuscitation of Zimbabwe's economy sort of dominated his speech. The issue of job creation, I mean, many people are of the view that he's being too ambitious here if one takes a look at the current systems that he's inheriting from President Robert Mugabe.
Well, Palisa, I'm not quite surprised by the tone of his speech, because remember, what he needs to do is to aspire confidence in the hearts and minds of ordinary Zimbabweans who have for the longest time felt hopeless in a situation where the economy of this country had not been doing well for over a decade. So the rhetoric, or the speech rather, that he gave to the Zimbabweans to loud applause is certainly what they wanted to hear, and it doesn't come as a surprise at all. Anyone, whether it was Emmerson Mnangagwa or anybody else who was to take over the reins of Zimbabwe, would really need to speak to the key issues that these ordinary Zimbabweans have been touching on ever since we arrived in this country. Their main issues is about resuscitating the economy of this country, returning it to its former glory, and the issue of job creation. For example, take a look at where you're sitting at the moment in Johannesburg. You have millions of Zimbabweans who have left this country in order to seek better job opportunities in South Africa. Do they want to be there? I don't think so. They want to return to their country, and we heard that as well from Emmerson Mnangagwa, who called on all peace-loving Zimbabweans, he said, to come back and together they will be able to rebuild this economy. So the tone of his speech, 100% I think what Zimbabweans wanted to hear, but getting down to the job itself is going to be a very difficult task for Emmerson Mnangagwa, because you're all looking at a history of a country that has really been in economic and political demise. So whether the job itself is going to be an easy one, I absolutely don't think so. But remember, he also has a very strong business background. I have been reiterating this, in that perhaps that would be able to attract foreign direct investment into this country, and perhaps even mend ties with the West, those that have been estranged for the longest time between, for example, the United States and Zimbabwe. Whether that happens certainly remains to be seen. What he will also need to do is to get, for example, the opposition on board. Recall that when these celebrations took place, something that we have never seen in Zimbabwe is where both Zanu-PF and official opposition members had come together and put aside political indifference and said the main focus is Zimbabwe and moving forward, rebuilding the economy of this country. So I would really like to think at this point, perhaps, I hope I'm correct, judging by the speech that Emmerson Mnangagwa gave yesterday at the Zanu-PF headquarters, that he wants to bring everybody on board, because it's really going to have to take a collective in order to rescue this country from the situation that it is in.
All right, Chriselda, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much indeed for coming through. Our reporter live from Harare in Zimbabwe, Chriselda Lewis, updating us with the developments taking place in that country. We're taking a break here on Morning Live. When you come back, we'll give you a news at 7.